loved hearing about all the adventures in the Unitarian church. So much to be thankful for. Our reading today is very brief. It's a parable. There's a light bulb here on the pulpit, and as soon as Armin came in, he said, "I have an idea." I hope it was a good one. Don't know why it's here, but I hope that the ideas that I'm going to be talking about are good ones. So, a parable. An angel was walking down the streets of the world, carrying a torch in one hand and a pail of water in the other. And a person asked the angel, "What are you doing with the torch and the pail?" The angel said, "With the torch, I am burning down the mansions of heaven, and with the pail, I am putting out the fires of hell. Then, and only then, will we see who truly loves." So, over the last few months, I've been wrestling, since the theme for October has been cultivating compassion. I've been wrestling with the meaning of compassion. And wrestling alone is no fun. So this morning, I'm inviting you to wrestle along with me. I've been having conversations with a few folks over the last several weeks around the question of whether there are people who are so evil that they are beyond our ability to feel compassion for them. And I've heard a variety of responses to the questions. Now, I've been talking to good people. So I have heard, well, yeah, it's easier to have compassion in some situations than in others. I think we know that. I've heard that compassion is definitely the desirable response to those who are the most challenging. I know it's the right thing, but I'm not there yet. And I've heard I have reservations about whether I even want to offer compassion to the most difficult people. And I've heard I'd like to think I could be compassionate in the face of an evil person, but I'm not sure. So you may want to add your own response to that question. Are there people so evil that they are beyond our ability to feel or to offer compassion for them? So to begin with, I'd like to invite you to take a moment or two in silence to bring to mind a person or persons for whom it is really difficult for you to even think about offering compassion. Don't be judgmental about whoever it is that comes into mind. If it's a person that's in need of compassion, but it's really hard for you, just hold that person in your thoughts as we move through the sermon together. So I want to start from the point of affirming that we each have within us a deep well of compassion. All you have to do is sit here and listen to the joys and concerns and feel the energy gathering around the folks who are sharing. This is a community with a deep well of compassion, and we each have that well inside of us. The great mystical thinkers go so far as to teach that we are made of compassion. We are made of the ability to suffer with and for another person. We're made of the ability to offer mercy. We're created that way. It is innate in human beings, and it's what makes us most human. So perhaps from that perspective, we can begin to look into the well together and see how deep does it really go. In many traditions, the metaphor of the well represents wisdom. The well represents the womb of the earth. The well represents a portal or a passageway to life-giving forces. And the image of the well is very strongly related to birth-giving images. So it's not a major metaphorical leap to consider the words of Meister Eckhart. He was a 14th century mystic. He talked a lot about the human capacity to give birth. not gender related at all, a human capacity to give birth. And he wrote that the most divine gift that human beings are to give birth to is compassion. He wrote, compassion triumphs over enemies. Compassion renders us holy. Compassion directs us toward relationship with our fellow human beings by way of justice. In this sense, compassion means justice. Compassion bestows blessing on us all and carries within it the possibility of a future wholeness. Close quote. So the notion of birthing compassion is actually really woven into the Abrahamic traditions, Judaism, Islam, Christianity. Human beings have the potential for birthing compassion, a divine attribute, into the world. I asked Rabbi Lori, many of you are familiar with her, I asked her what a Jewish perspective on compassion looked like. And she reminded me of the chanting of what are called the 13 attributes of God that are repeated over and over again during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And primary among these 13 attributes is the attribute of divine compassion. In Hebrew, the word for compassion, rachamim, comes from the same root as the word for womb, rachem. So Eckhart's birthing of compassion metaphor gathers a little bit of strength here. Birthing compassion, and I love the playing around with the labor and delivery words, but birthing compassion is perhaps the most profound labor of love, and it may involve suffering through pain and through struggle to get to the place where we can birth it in the face of the people for whom we find the most difficulty. The notion of cultivating compassion offers the possibility of plumbing the depths of the well. So if we begin with the affirmation that we come into being with a deep well of compassion as part of our original equipment, so we have something to work with. When I was about 7 years old, I witnessed my mom and dad and my grandparents in the process of building the home where I would spend most of my childhood. The land they had purchased was rural and it was undeveloped. There were no services at all. So the first thing to be done was to dig a well. And they dug it by hand. Well, this is back in the 40s now, so, and they didn't have a lot of money. So they dug this well by hand, and it went down, I think, some 25 to 30 feet or so to the water source. Now, as a child, this was a great mystery to me, but it is a living metaphor now. And once the well was established and the pump installed, in order to get water from the well, the pump needed to be primed. And that meant pouring water into the system, kind of a preparatory action to get the larger system to work. The water source was already there, but it needed some action on the part of my elders in order to get the water to the surface. Wisdom from the Zen Buddhist tradition offers some practical pump primers. I consulted my Buddhist priest son about this, and this is what he offered to me. They're questions to ask ourselves when we ponder whether anyone is bad enough, evil enough, to be beyond the reach of our ability to extend compassion. They're like preparatory questions to stimulate the larger system to get to work. So I invite you to bring to mind again that most difficult and challenging person or persons. And from the Zen tradition, here are 6 pump primers that might help in reaching the depths of the well of compassion that resides in each one of us. First one is, perhaps we might investigate the details of the many conditions that shaped this particular person. how would we tell the story of his or her childhood, family, upbringing, mental health, education, spiritual life, friends, community? What are all the circumstances that contributed to this person becoming who they are? Second pump primer is that perhaps we can set aside, at least for a while, the "he is evil" story and explore the "he is just like me" story. In what ways are we the same, especially regarding our needs and our hopes and our fears, our feelings, our life strategies? Third, perhaps we could consider setting aside, at least for a while, the "she will never change" story and explore instead the "she's likely to change" story. Life circumstances are shifting all the time. Imagine some change that it might affect her journey through life. Number 4, we might explore our uneasy feelings regarding what we want to do about this person. Do we want to harm him? Restrain him? Fix her? Encourage others to share our view about her? How do these feelings mesh with our feelings to show compassion? Pump primer number 5. Perhaps we could explore whether or not there's anything we could possibly do to ease this person's distress or suffering. Is there something we could do? Would we do it? If there's nothing we could do, would we at least wish for them to be safe and well and at ease? The final pump primer is the kicker. If we feel resistance to exploring any of these above questions, perhaps we might consider what's going on inside of us that's fueling the resistance. The wisdom of the Zen tradition puts before us the possibility of making a choice to exercise compassion in even the most extreme situations. Exercising a certain mindfulness, we can make the choice to reframe our response to evil. We can reframe it from one of fear and judgment to one of compassion. We're living through a time of profound polarization. We're witnesses to personalities who seem utterly devoid of compassion for anyone else. The news gives us a daily diet of demonization of the other. It has occurred to me that the person who is so completely separated from any experience of their own inner well of compassion, that person is the most to be pitied, because he or she has lost their connection with their own humanity. I cannot imagine a greater suffering than that. And that particular kind of suffering has a ripple effect that causes suffering wherever it goes. Even the most well-intentioned among us are at risk for losing the ability to generate compassion for the other, losing our most divinely human attribute, if we are to credit Eckhart's thinking. We are in danger at any moment of becoming what we hate. At the very least, we need to all be well connected with one another to support one another in the holy work of maintaining those wells of compassion deep within, not just for those that we deem deserving, but for those who seem well beyond the reach of a compassionate heart, those who cause others to suffer. Extending compassion in the face of polarization and demonization may not have an immediate effect on the external situation, but it does have an effect on us. Exercising compassion places a containment boundary around our own self-righteousness It softens our hearts. Eckhart's words are worth repeating as a challenge for us to embrace. Compassion triumphs over enemies. Compassion renders us holy. Compassion directs us toward relationship with our fellow human beings by way of justice. In this sense, compassion means justice. Compassion bestows blessings on us all and carries within it the possibility of a future wholeness. We began with the parable of an angel walking down the streets around the world, carrying a torch in one hand and a pail of water in the other. The torch was for burning down the mansions of heaven. The pail of water was for putting out the fires of hell. Then and only then will we see who truly loves. The parable has been interpreted in many ways in different traditions, but perhaps just for today, we might see it as the holy work of loving compassion eliminating the polarities of heaven and hell, good and evil, insider, outsider, us, them, perhaps permitting the possibility of a more compassionate wholeness in which humankind can dwell together. This has been the vision of the prophets and the mystics and the saints over the ages. May we make it our own. If we're not quite there yet, all we have to do is begin. The well is deep. We have the tools for priming the pump, and we can do it together. May it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 34. Though I May Speak is the first line of it. It'll be a challenging one, I'm sure. Please be seated. For our closing words today of benediction, I would like to use a prayer of blessing from John Philip Newell's book, Praying with the Earth. May the angels of light glisten for us this day. May the sparks of divine beauty dance in the eyes of those we love. May the universe be on fire with presence for this day. May the new sun's rising grace us with gratitude. Let earth's greenness shine and its waters breathe with spirit. Let heaven's winds stir the soil of our soul and fresh awakenings rise within us. May the mighty angels of light glisten in all things this day. May they summon us to reverence. May they call us to life. Amen.